everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up, and honestly, this, in the midst of all of the 2019-2020 content, feels a little weird to film, but I read books in the month of December of 2019 and it feels even weirder not to talk about them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video despite it kind of being a little out of date. For the month of December, I'm not gonna lie, I had a bit of a reading slump. It's one of those months where I started out strong, but there was a lot of traveling, I was with family, I was kind of relaxing. I really wasn't prioritizing reading. I did complete 4 books, so it's not like I didn't read anything. I did read a significant amount, but definitely not as much as I had hoped. That being said, it is technically January right now, and I'm honestly killing it. I have been so productive with reading the past week or so. So I'm really hoping that I finally have left this reading slump behind in 2019. That is a 2020 mood right there. Leave the slump behind. I'm over it, I'm tired of it, I just want to enjoy reading and not have to worry about it anymore. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the books I read in December. So the first book I completed was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Ultimately, this book was a huge disappointment for me, but let's chat through it. This is the third and final book to the Cruel Prince series. We follow our main character Jude, who is a human but raised in the Fae world. The Fae are beautiful but honestly very cruel creatures. Her and her twin sister have honestly been tormented their whole life. So when Jude is given the opportunity to kind of seize some of that power back for herself and kind of get stuck right in the middle of Fae politics, she does. Fast forward through a few books, we have amazing political intrigue, really dramatic, hate to love, angsty romance, which is my favorite part of the series, to be honest. That angst was so well written. And then we, wrap into this third and final novel, which so many of us were anticipating. And for me, I just found this book to be a really big letdown in terms of a series finisher. It was very short in that it did not give a lot of time to develop the final end plot points. We did not get enough Jude and Carden back and forth. I felt like the payoff to a lot of these storylines we were all so invested in was just not really there, and ultimately I just found this book to be a big letdown. It was so sad and disappointing, so I ended up giving it like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I know it's hard to believe me when I say like I would still recommend reading this series for the first 2 books because they're so great, even though this third book was not amazing. I hear if you get the Barnes & Noble edition of this third book, it's better because it includes letters that Carden wrote to Jude, which I feel like gives more context to their romance and kind of does that element of the storyline more justice. But honestly, I really don't think there's anything saving the lack of build-up and like the convenient come together of the end plot points of the story. I'm so sad about it. Like, I have been obsessed with this series for years, shouting about it from the rooftops, and for it to culminate in such a disappointing way, it breaks my heart. I still really enjoy Holly Black's writing. I really want to pick up The Darkest Part of the Forest, which I think is one of the only books of hers I have not read or tried to read, so that is on my list. That being said, I did give this third and final book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. From there, I picked up Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the sequel to Skyward, which is a novel I read and loved last year. This is a story where we follow our main character Spensa, who lives on a human colony that's constantly under attack by another species. They're constantly trying to destroy their colonies with spaceships, and therefore the military within Spensa's world is not only vital but super praised. However, in this world, being brave to the point of recklessness is really idealized, and Spensa's father was a super famous pilot but actually fled in the midst of battle and therefore deemed the worst possible thing, a coward. Because of her father's actions, Spensa's actually barred from participating in the military. However, she kind of forces them to reconsider when she finds a very mysterious thing in a cave. That's essentially the premise of the first novel. The sequel basically takes place exactly at the end of the first novel. We really experience, in the first one at least, lots of great pilot school training, lots of growth within characters, really amazing connections, and in some ways we kind of lose that in the sequel. I kind of have 2 minds about this. From a positive perspective, Spensa essentially goes beyond and kind of learns more about other alien species, kind of learns about the politics within this universe, and that is really, really interesting. Some negatives is that I feel like the reason why she was able to leave and do that was really convenient. It was such a plot ploy, it just kind of dropped in her lap and then she was off on an adventure. In some ways too, the sequel was kind of a repeat of the first one from a pilot school perspective. While that's a fascinating thing to read and it's really cool to read about all this different space combat, following that same format kind of just repackaged on a different planet was just like not what I was expecting, especially from someone like Brandon Sanderson. I also felt like, well, we got more perspective on Spencer, and there was some really interesting characters within the story. Some of the other characters kind of got put on the back burner and they fell a little flat. As you can see, again, two minds with this book. It was super fast paced, the plot was very intriguing. Spencer as well as Embad are like my faves. I really enjoyed how Spencer was forced to kind of confront the complexities of politics. Not everything is black and white as much as she would like it to be. That was really great elements of the story, but I cannot ignore kind of some of the flaws of this novel. So because of that, I would give this like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was good, and some parts I love, but other parts I just could not get past. So that is my rating for that. It's still definitely a series I would recommend. Skyward was amazing, 5 out of 5 stars. So don't let my 3.5 star rating of this deter you, because I have a strong feeling the next book is going to be amazing. Sorry about my lighting, it's now an inferno. The next book I picked up is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book that really intrigued me because I feel like it kind of has all over the place ratings. You either love it or you hate it. And I think a lot of it has to do with expectations going in, what you think this book is going to give you and deliver. It's not a magic school book. It's more about a book that's set on a school campus that has some magical components. Easy to assume it's about magic school, but it's not. This follows our main character Alex, who has had a very troubled and difficult childhood, mostly stemming from the fact that she can see ghosts and these ghosts can interact with her. This has forced her to have to move schools, run away from home, and basically her only way to really cope with the horror that she feels with seeing these ghosts is to turn to drugs. She's honestly going down a really hard and rough road, and one day she wakes up in the hospital and she's basically introduced to some people from the Yale University campus, and from there she's plucked from California and brought to Yale and to be a part of the secret Ninth House Society. Essentially, in this novel world, magic still exists, and it kind of exists within sort of eddies within space and places. And the Yale campus, for whatever reason, is just a place that has more eddies than anywhere else within the United States. Because of this, secret societies kind of claim one of the sources of power, and they all kind of do different magic, mostly in some way or another propelling their own self-interest with wealth or power or influence, what have you. 8 of these secret societies on campus, but Alex is actually part of the Ninth House, which is essentially a regulatory secret society that kind of watches over everyone else's use of magic to ensure that they're not kind of taking advantage beyond, you know, the appropriate level of taking advantage, and they're not impacting other students on campus or residents or townies, as they're called, that live outside of the Yale campus as well. At the beginning of the story, Alex, our main character, stumbles upon a murder, and she believes that this murder is likely due to secret society activity. However, no one wants to admit to it, no one thinks that's the case, and she's kind of thrown headfirst within trying to solve this murder, both because she wants to bring justice for this girl, but she's also tired of seeing these privileged people within these secret worlds just get away with whatever they want. So that's kind of the tale of this book. It's so good. One, you fall in love with Alex as a main character. She is someone to root for. You have so much compassion and empathy and understanding for her character. She also is such a voice for the reader, because as she's encountering all these ridiculous people and going through all these insane initiations, she is constantly voicing how absurd everything is. But you also see her kind of begin to understand, and she's so smart, and so when she's starting to investigate things, she's skeptical and she makes these connections that you just wouldn't see from a million miles away. This is like a dark academia magic story mixed with a murder mystery, mixed with like a school setting. It's so entrancing and I love it so much. I think this is going to be a multi-book series with kind of like a different mystery within each novel, which I honestly don't read a lot of serialized fiction. It's not usually for me, but I could read a serialized fiction series following Alex for the rest of my life. She's so amazing to read about, and I loved the atmosphere that this Yale campus brought and the secret societies. Everyone's terrible, but you just can't put it down because you like them at the same time sometimes. I don't know. This was a book that really captivated me. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next one in the series. And the last book I completed in the month of December is Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series, the first one of course being The Lies of Locke Lamora. The Lies of Locke Lamora series in the month of October and absolutely loved it. This is essentially essentially a fantasy series where we follow a band of individuals, the main character being Locke Lamora. We follow him in the first novel from childhood as well as an adult, as he's basically learning the tricks of the trade to be the absolute best thief of all time. You also follow him with his merry group of individuals as they're tricking and conning a rich person in their path of all of their funds in the most creative and ingenious ways. In the first novel, he finds himself kind of in the middle of an underground coup of like different gangs, and he has to try to navigate that safely. In the sequel, we basically follow the direct aftermath of everything that happened in the first one, and he's kind of set on a new adventure and a new heist to kind of occupy his time. One being so ingenious and having a main character that is so clever that he is tricking the pants off of everyone in this book, but also you. You have no idea what he's gonna do next, how he's gonna solve things, you kind of see pieces of his schemes as he's going along, but you don't necessarily see the whole picture until he's kind of set off all the dominoes. Two, Locke as a main character as well as his friends Jean are just lovable. You root for them, you want them to succeed even though they're doing bad things. It's very confusing, but they're just people you root for and you care about deeply. Their friendship is one that is so endearing and lovable. Like, seeing them interact together is just my joy. Like, that is probably one of my favorite parts of the series. The sequel, Scott Lynch expands on this sort of heist type setting of this book and kind of ups the ante by introducing a new type of heisting, and that is piratry. Most of this book is actually set on a pirate ship, and we follow the best group of pirates. Particularly, the captain of this ship is like a mother of two who will not stop to take names. She runs her ship in such great orderly nature, and watching her essentially put Locke in her place consistently, but also kind of seeing how they work together is so satisfying, and I loved her as a character introduced within this world. All that being said, I wouldn't say I liked this book as much as the first one. I feel like the first one had all these mini heists throughout it, like there was this big heist, but along the way you would still kind of have these fun twists and turns where you couldn't guess what was going on. I feel like this one had less of that. While it was very entertaining and I loved the pirate setting, we just didn't get as much thievery as we got in the first one, which was honestly like my favorite element of this whole series. So because of that, it just wasn't my favorite compared to the first one. It also had a lot of emotional stakes. Well, I would say both books have a lot of emotional stakes. You truly fall in love with everyone in this series. You're definitely worried for them as it's going along. That being said though, I gave the first one like a 5 out of 5 stars. I would give this one like a 4 out of 5. It was very strong, but it wasn't perfect and it wasn't as good as the first one, but I would still highly recommend this series. And the last book I'm gonna talk about is one I'm sure you are tired of seeing, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I have to preface this before I jump in to say, yes, this book is taking me a long time to read, but that is not because I'm not liking it. It's simply that this is exclusively my commute book. So if I'm reading on the train, this is what I'm reading, and due to it being long, it's taking me a bit longer, combined with the fact that November and December were holiday months, so I wasn't commuting nearly as much as like normal months, if you will. So I'm hoping within the first couple months of this year, I'll be able to finish it. I was actually able to read another 200 pages this month, and I'm honestly liking it more than ever. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell have crossed paths, and it is so entertaining. They're so different. I'm also entertaining the idea of possibly picking up the audiobook. Has any of you guys out there listened to it? I'm hoping one of you has and can give me like some feelings about the narrator, because I'm currently really into audiobooks, and I think listening to it on the train in the morning would also be so lovely and nice. But yeah, I'm loving this like 17th century magical gentleman story. I love how different they are. I love that they can't stand, but also are like the only ones that can understand each other. And I'm really interested to see how the rest of this book unfolds. And I'm hoping to pick up the audiobook as well in the coming months. But I did read a chunk of this as well. Alrighty guys, those are all of the books I read in the month of December. Let me know down below some books you've read recently, as I would love to know, and I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!